Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang, and welcome back to Roll Mangging for our Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign. If you've been following along, you'll know that I'm on my third character at this point, but that's okay. He's a good one. Last time we were introduced to Orion, the boy genius, 15 years of age. And we followed him on his trek through a forest full of bullshit elves and shitty magic. But he eventually persevered through the help of dumb chance, really, which is not very heroic at all. But we got out. And so we found ourselves a new companion named Benny, who is seeking to rejoin his group at the Temple of Gales, which is where we were also going. Alright, so that's where we kind of picked up. And this session, as well as probably most sessions from now on, we didn't really have Ziggy and Mert, which is a bummer, because those are kind of, you know, I like having those two guys there because it's kind of how I grew up in my D&D career, is with these two guys. So, I mean, new people are great. I'm liking the group that we got going on, but it's sad, you know, that the two guys that I actually know can't really join us. Just, you know, schedule. So, we're kind of on the lookout for replacements. We're seeing what's going on. I mean, we could probably play with just the three of us, and, you know, we kind of pretty much did. But 4 or 5 is kind of the sweet spot. So, we'll see what happens. So, we started this session on the boat, on the way to the temple. Obviously, I was not there, because Schmendrick was dead. So, it started with them hearing Schmendrick's scream of death. And they rushed in and, you know, tried to piece this together from Archibald, that apparently Schmendrick went mad, stabbed him, and then Archibald blasted him into another plane of existence. And so that was pleasant. They were quite shocked by this, because they thought Schmendrick was such a good guy. How could he be capable of this? It's always the ones you least expect, man. It's the ones that the neighbors say, oh, he's quiet, he helps me with my groceries, and then boom, he stabs you in the middle of the night to try to steal your power. Yep. So, they ended up cleaning up Schmendrick in a bucket, threw him overboard, and I think Seneth, like, checked out the pirate ship. He checked out the pirate ship finally. And they found, like, a letter? Found, like, a letter. Well, for one, okay, he found, their flag, like the pirate flag. It looked, at first glance, like a skull and crossbones, but it was actually a dragon skull and crossbones. That has no significance to me, but it sounded like a plot point. And then he found a letter, and I don't remember exactly what it said, but it said something to the effect of it was about Roella, and it was like her father will pay a handsome sum for her, or something like that. So this wasn't just a random pirate attack; this was calculated in advance. So that's something. I don't know. I wasn't there. I have no part of that. Schmendrick was dead. Yeah, so that was pretty much it. And then finally they arrived. And as they got off the boat to start heading to the temple, Gulk said he thinks he's going to go now. He's got places to be, people to see. And he says that everybody in that group seems kind of uptight. Which, you know, with Schmendrick dead, Ovum dead, yeah, I can kind of see that. So he just left. He just walked in the opposite direction. Now me, I don't know what they were thinking. I know I've played enough D&D. He didn't just walk away because Ren was like, I think maybe Gulk's had enough. No, there's a big plot point coming up that Gulk can't be a part of. Okay. So he left, they continued on, and so it was kind of weird, because, like, Zeratul and Finn were there, but they really weren't there. They were just kind of like mindless zombies with no combat potential. They had no potential, which is how Mert normally is, but, when you have somebody there, a character, when the player is not, it's just like, I mean, that's a problem that doesn't come up in board games. That doesn't happen in board games. So that is, a downside of role-playing is consistency. So, yeah, they kind of just follow along until you decide they're not coming back, we'll just get rid of them somewhere. I think they did say that Finn would guard the boat from any Knoll attacks. So that was one less burden. And so we all met up then at the edge of the temple. And I feel like the way that he pictured it was like there was like a cliff. Like we went up to the edge of the cliff and then there was like a big ravine. And then there was a giant, like a mountain, basically, and the temple was on top of it. So there was just this, like, giant empty gap in between us and this high-up temple. But I think it was more like, I don't think there was a cliff part. I think it was just like, there's just a bunch of forest, and then boom, there's a mountain and there's a temple. So as soon as I was presented with this, I immediately started thinking, I was like, how do we get to this temple? This is cool, but how do we get there? My first thought was climb up, glide down into it. But that involves climbing, which is not a strong suit. There are ways to mitigate that. Like I was thinking spitballing. And then I asked to roll like a history on the temple, because I was like, historically, how did people get to this? There's got to be something, some hidden path, or something, some mechanism. I don't know. It turns out, well, Roella rolled higher than I did, because D20s. Apparently, they use a teleportation pad. Magic. I mean, I'm not upset at Ren for, saying, okay, there's a teleportation pad. Because what I said was like, oh, everything is magic, nothing is science-y. But if it was like a science teleportation pad, like Chrono Trigger or something, whatever, I probably still wouldn't be satisfied. Because it was like, well, basically, they just handed the solution to me. I think that's probably what I was a little upset about. It was like, this is cool. How am I going to get up to this temple? What can I do? And then it's just, oh, here's a pad you step on. I'm not that upset about it. There's plenty of puzzles for me to solve, so I'm not ragging on Ren. But I was just like, magic. Damn you, magic! So we're like, okay, teleportation pad. It's got to be around here, so we'll just head towards the temple. So we walk through the little wooded area, and we get up to. We find like 3 guys dressed in leather armor next to a pile of dirt. And so I think Roella was like, it can't hurt us to just ask them some questions. And I'm like, it might. The world's an untrustworthy place. But we went up to them, and they said, halt, who goes there, so on and so forth. They said the temple is off limits to outsiders because something like the voice. Yeah, the voice of the Eidolon is missing. The voice of Garuda. And they remembered that Gulk is the voice of Garuda. And so they start saying, like, we were just talking to the voice of Garuda, the voice. Like they're like, that sounds convenient, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, they, religious fanatics. What do I do? So I use telepathy on the main guy, and I'm like, Garuda demands that you let these people pass on your life. And I don't know if that really solved anything, because they, like, right before I did that, he was like, can you describe the voice? And they were basically describing him in full detail. And so he kind of gets hit with that, and he's like checking his head and stuff. He's like, and then he's like, well, that sounds like a good description, so I guess you can pass. So I don't know if it affected anything, but it was a backup. So we all step on this pile of dirt. We get teleported up to the temple, and the temple was basically, like, the whole area was not the temple. There was like a city there as well, and then the temple was at like the back end. And so it was kind of a bustling city. So I guess all these people are not outsiders. I don't know how that worked. They all live there. It's like Vegas. I don't know. And so, of course, we headed pretty much straight for the temple. And so we find out that Garuda, the Eidolon, which I don't think I've talked about Eidolons, and I don't think I have a great explanation for them. I don't remember specifics. Ren maybe can explain in a comment. But as I understand it, there's like gods. There's like the gods. And then there's the Eidolons, which like helped the gods or something. Like they're like lesser gods. Like they're not regular people. They're not that. They're more than that, but they're less than full gods. But they're like physically here. Like as you'll soon see, like you can walk up to one and slap it if you want it. So they're somewhere in between. I don't know the exact nature. I should probably read about that. Okay. So the Eidolon has been like cursed, or somebody has cast a spell on it and it's sleeping when it shouldn't be sleeping. And so also then the voice of the Eidolon, the one person who is supposed to speak, who is capable of speaking with the Eidolon, is missing, which is Gulk. He's missing. We know where he is. We were just talking to him, but he's not at the temple where he should be. And so they said, we just talked to him, and he went the other direction, and so on and so forth. And so the main guy there, the steward, he's like, as I suspected, we believe that this Gulk is a traitor, that he cast this dark curse on Garuda and fled. And so I'm like, can I like see Garuda? I've written a number of papers on, some napathy, and I'm quite knowledgeable on sleep disorders and things of that nature. And I do have a high medicine roll and a high arcana roll. I'm the one that should be checking this out. So he says, with an escort. So I go back there to the heart of the temple, and sure enough, there's Garuda, she's a large, naked woman with wings. She's like 10 feet tall, and she's like suspended in midair, and she's sleeping. And so I walk up these steps to get closer to her. Like, I wanted to like get eye level, but I got like breast level. So this 15-year-old kid just staring at these breasts. A normal 15-year-old kid may be pretty, distracted, but Orion, he's on point. He knows what he needs to be doing. This ain't no time for childish perversions. And so I start inspecting on both a medical level and an arcanic level. I don't really like magic, but due to my, scion abilities, I do have a connection with, this other force present in the world, so I'm also good at that. Medically, I couldn't really find anything wrong with her, but partly because, this is a creature I've never really inspected before. I have no real knowledge of how their anatomy works. I'm just basing it on, humanoid anatomy. Also partly because I didn't roll well. D20s, yeah! So then I rolled Arcana. I think I rolled slightly better for that, not much. And all I could really tell was there was some dark aura around her. So my inspections did not reveal much. So I'm like, I'm gonna try to, reach out telepathically. Yeah, she's sleeping, but there might still be some activity. She might still be able to respond in some form. Who knows? 'Cause, people in a coma, they say there's still some there's some activity going on. So we'll see. It's telepathy, So I communicate telepathy, and I start just saying her name in her head, and she mumbles something under her breath, just barely notice it all. And so then I asked, what has befallen you? And this time she actually responded telepathically, and she said, flee this place before he returns. And so that was that's where a TV show would end for the next episode. Bum. And so I immediately was before who returns? And I didn't get a response. There was just this whistling noise, and the others came into the room, and they just see me staring at her breasts and not saying anything, and there's a whistling noise, and they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, Garuda, I need answers! Orion demands answers. And so finally I got one last statement, and it was just, seek Lorona. And the whistling stopped, and I was like, that's probably all I'm going to get out of her. So I stepped down, I went to the steward, and I was like, I need to speak to the steward privately. So I go to him, and I'm like, there is something wrong. Some dark curse has befallen Garuda. It's beyond my knowledge and power. But do you know a Lorona? And he said, yeah, she's an alchemist here. I need to speak to her. So he fetches for Lorona. And yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. So Lorona eventually comes. I talk to her privately. And I tell her that, yeah, I spoke to Garuda. She mentioned your name. What's up, bitch? I imagine that's a pretty big deal, because I'm not a voice of an Eidolon. I'm just a kid. So apparently, I think that's a big deal. And I was like, what's your connection here? And so she said that she recommended to the steward and whatever a alchemical method of reawakening Garuda, but it was shot down because they believe in their faith will provide an answer. So they're basically like Christian Science, I guess. And I was like, what is this method? And basically it's just, a chemical formula that would reawaken her. But there's a missing ingredient. And the missing ingredient is the intraocular fluid of a basilisk. So, basilisk's eye juice. Great. And so, again, it's about motivations. Orion needs answers. Garuda has answers. He's going to do whatever it takes. So, yeah, he's going to go get this eye juice. The vitreous fluid. So I'm like, I'm going to go get this. I'm going to come back. We're going to make this happen. Okay. During this time, apparently Roella has a spell called Detect Thoughts, or Read Thoughts, or something like that, which lets her read the surface thoughts of a creature, and then if she wants, she can go a bit deeper and try and read even more thoughts. So she decided to use this on Garuda. And Ren sent her a picture of what Garuda's surface thoughts were. And apparently it was so horrific that Roella, the player, wanted to, throw up. And she, apparently it was really bad. I don't know what it was. I don't know. He didn't show any of us. It was just really bad. Unless he just sent her, a picture of a kitten and he was just act like this is the worst thing you've ever seen. I don't know. I don't know what it was. But she was horrified. And so she read then Seneth's surface thoughts. And his surface thoughts were just boobs. Because Garuda has boobs and they're out for all to see. And then Orion walks in and she reads my surface thoughts. And my surface thoughts at the time were just of a basilisk, because I was already contemplating about how to retrieve this fluid, so she just saw a picture of a basilisk. She decided to go deeper. I don't know why, but she wanted more thoughts from that, so she tried to get past my will save. She didn't. So she didn't get any more thoughts, and now I knew that she just tried to probe my mind. And I raised an eyebrow at her. So then we have a bit of a conversation with Roella acting very strangely, horrified by just everything going on. Noticeably horrified. And so I'm just kind of something's up. But I explained to them that, the only way to reawaken Garuda is to get the vitreous fluid from a basilisk. Yeah. And they were kind of hesitant to awaken Garuda again, because they don't know all the facts, and I agree. Not all the facts are known. Who put her to sleep? Why put her to sleep? If somebody put her to sleep, that means somebody doesn't want her to be awake. They have to have a reason for her not to be awake. What's going on? We need more info. And so normally I agree, but again, Orion is in search of answers. Garuda has answers. He doesn't know who else has answers. It's pretty simple. So he's set on, at the very least, getting this fluid, and he'll worry about the rest later. And so Roella at one point muttered under her breath something about seeing something. It was real quiet. Only Orion heard it. And so I was like, yeah, we're gonna have to discuss something later. And so at this point, Seneth brings up a theory that he has about Benny. He claims that his theory is that Benny, is for one not what he seems, and I agree. It's not what he seems. But he says that Benny might actually be the voice of another Eidolon. That seemed like a mocking silence. It was. I was just thinking about it. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know what his evidence really is to specifically be a voice of an Eidolon. I mean, I agree he's got something going on that's not right, but specifically to be a voice of an Eidolon, why? Like, why would he be traveling with us? And why would he seem as nefarious as he does? I don't know. I don't think that all adds up. It's a possibility, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to go ahead with that assumption. Like, I'm not going to think in my head that that is what's going on. I'll leave it on the table, but I'm not picking it up. I don't think that's not even an analogy. You understand what I'm saying. Anyways, so I was like, I'm going to have a talk with Benny, see if I can get some info. And so I told the steward that we're going to spend the night before heading out. We have some leads, maybe we can reawaken Garuda, so we're going to head out in the morning. So we spent the night there, and first I visited Rowella. And this would almost be like a budding romance right here if she was not like in her 40s and I was not 15. But so it's kind of like a child visiting his mother, I guess. And so basically, we just kind of... I was like, you saw something. What's going on? And so she tried to describe what she saw. She didn't really want to describe it, but she did. And she basically described Azathoth, I guess. She described a Lovecraftian horror. She mentioned horns, wings, teeth, tentacles, formless, but yet horrific, and just read a description of Azathoth or something, and that's basically what she said. And so I was like, this seems kind of vague. And so I wanted to do like a Professor X thing, so I put my hands on her temples, and I was like, I want to see this. And so Ren sent me an image that I see from her head, or something. So there's no way to verify if this is the same image that she saw. I was not horrified by what I saw, but I've seen stuff on the interwebs, so I don't know. It didn't seem like that big of a deal. It was kind of cool. So I don't know. I doubt it was the same image, but you never know. Okay, so what I saw was a Lovecraftian creature. There was plenty spikes and tentacles and teeth and wings and stuff like that. It was alien is what I would say. The name of the image. Here's the key part that I want to talk about. The name of the image. This is like utter metagaming, by the way. Utter. The name of the image that he sent me was called Nyarlathotep.jpg. So that gives us some info. I'm pretty sure that most people have watched my Call of Cthulhu role-manging stuff. If not, I recommend it. It was a fantastic campaign. But if not, you want the quick summary. The main bad guy of that campaign was Nyarlathotep, which is a Lovecraftian outer god, horrible alien, 100% evil. Well, no, I'm not going to get into that. We'll say evil for now. And Nyarlathotep is the master of taking many different shapes, many different faces, he wears many masks, He can look like anybody. And so he's also, I called him Loki had a kid with the devil, is basically how I describe it, which I think is still a pretty solid way of describing Nyarlathotep. He has the power to kind of crush the planet, but he just likes fucking around with it instead. Again, that's my interpretation. I don't know if that's Lovecraft's interpretation, but it's similar, I would say. And in my Call of Cthulhu campaign, my version of Masks of Nyarlathotep, I had Gulk. I had Gulk in there, and in that campaign, he was Nyarlathotep. He was just a form of Nyarlathotep. And so it was very kind of foreboding, because all the players knew that he was, well, at least bad news. They didn't maybe know that he was Nyarlathotep right away, but they knew he was kind of bad, like, this is not regular Gulk. So he acted like normal Gulk. You know, he was just that friendly kind of trickster, just kind of tagging along and in for the ride, but he had the power to just send you to eternal torment for the rest of existence, you know. So it was my favorite version of Gulk. I like normal original Gulk where he has the bag and it's chaotic, but he doesn't really mean anything by it. It's just, he's a fun guy. But I like that version of Gulk where it's just, you're terrified of, he's like a clown, you know. He's like, yeah, he looks friendly, you know, he's meant to be friendly, but really lurking underneath is a terror that you will never know. I like that. And so, during that campaign, I kind of said, I was like, you know, in my headcanon, Gulk has always been Nyarlathotep, you know, it's always been the same Gulk. It's always been the same Gulk throughout all the times that we've had Gulk in a campaign, and it's always just been Nyarlathotep in disguise. That's my headcanon. I don't think Ziggy subscribes to that. He likes the kind of jokester original Gulk, but I like the Nyarlathotep. And so, you know, it's the same Gulk, and he goes from the Shadowrun universe to the Dungeons and Dragons to 1920s Egypt and all sorts of in-between stuff. And Numenera, so he went a billion years in the future at some point, because why not? Just all around. And so I really liked that. And I think Ren liked it too, because I'm pretty sure that's what we have on our hands. I think we have Nyarlathotep Gulk on the loose. So we're kind of combining two different campaign histories. On one hand, we have the Drethic campaign, where Artemis, the Nine Divines, all that good stuff. And then on the other hand, we have Nyarlathotep Gulk. And so it raises a lot of question of the overall plot. If you remember, I talked about how I liked the concept of something happening to the Nine Divines. They got something bad happen to them. They got screwed over, and then, you know, they're unable to really communicate, if at all. Maybe only Artemis, something like that. You know, bad shit happened to them, and this new wave swept through. So what if Nyarlathotep was the one responsible? Again, why? Again, it's gnarly, you know. He just does things for fun. Who are the new gods? Are the new gods all fake? Are the Eidolons all fake? Is Garuda just another puppet? I don't know. That's going a bit too far from my. I mean, we're getting into like lost theories at this point. I don't know. That I'm still working out, but I'm pretty sure Nyarlathotep Gulk is doing stuff. Now, if he was the one that put the curse or whatever on Garuda, then I would say that the Eidolons are not just puppets. But then it asks the questions of who are they? Who are the new gods? Nyarlathotep has more power than this. What's his? I don't know. It asks a lot of questions, but bottom line, we can't trust Gulk any longer. I wasn't sure if he was going to be playful Gulk or evil Gulk. I'm fairly certain at this point. Also, okay, at one point, Seneth asked the steward about the symbol of Artemis. And the steward got real, like, he got, angry is not the word. Somewhere getting to that point. I don't know. But he was like, where have you seen this symbol? Why do you ask about it? He's like, oh, I've seen it all over the place. What is it? And the steward explained that this symbol was linked to a small cult of heretics that wanted to bring the downfall of Garuda. They were against this whole concept of Garuda. And so Seneth asked, was it the cult of Artemis? And the steward said he couldn't remember. He didn't know. That was probably bullshit. I think there's a bigger plot there. But it raises an interesting question again of, the Eidolons. What are they? How are they linked to these new gods? How are they linked to the old gods? Who is the cult of Artemis? Orion was out of the room for that conversation. So he doesn't know that the others know about this symbol. He would have been very interested. Because that symbol is what's going on in his head, If Roella had succeeded in going deeper thoughts on Orion, she would have seen him thinking about that symbol. So that would have helped that conversation go along. But there's a cult of Artemis apparently out there that is against Garuda. Why? Orion needs to find these people and talk to them. They believe that Garuda took over or replaced Artemis, usurped the throne. I don't know. I'm very curious. I like this. So that's another thing. There's a cult of Artemis out there somewhere. Ovum was like a part of it, even though he didn't really know there was others. I don't know how that worked. He was kind of delusional. I don't know. Okay, so anyways. Yeah, so I talked to Roella. I saw the image, which kind of spooked me. And then I revealed that I have telepathy, because I thought that she had telepathy. She just had a sorcerer spell. It was a magic spell, but Orion doesn't really know that. He just can see that she can apparently read thoughts, and he's never met anybody that can do that. Yes, logically speaking, if read thoughts or whatever is a level 1 sorcerer spell, it's highly likely that Orion would have encountered. Yeah. But you can't. That's like double meta. I don't know what that is. We're not thinking that way. For the time being, we're assuming he's never met anybody else that can read thoughts. It's a completely different kind of way of reading thoughts. Magic versus psionic energy, which I don't even know what you classify as. Most would probably say magic. It's all magic, whatever. And so she was quite impressed. She's like, oh, cool. You ain't seen nothing yet. So then I went to talk to Benny. And I wasn't sure how this conversation would go. I was ready to just strangle him or something if I had to. But I was hoping it would be kind of peaceful and everything, and it was. Basically, I told him the others' theories about him, that he was a voice of an Eidolon, and he just kind of laughed at that, and I couldn't get a good read on him because D20s, and so I'm not sure. I told him that I didn't really believe it, and I meant in character that I didn't really believe it. He didn't seem the type. Golk doesn't really seem the type either, but he's also near Lethotep, so can't get a good read on him. And so then I was like, Benny, let's kind of cut through all this. Let's just level with each other. Why are you in this group? And so, he said the orb, he owes this favor. This group seems the best way to find this person that he needs to return the orb to. But he wouldn't say who the person is. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even know. Nah, he probably knows. He's hiding all sorts of shit. But I believed him. Because I asked him, like, you promise, you swear you're not going to bring harm to me or anything like that. Because I just don't want to be stabbed in the back. And so he said, I swear, blah, 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 I won't do it to you or anyone in any of our compatriots. And I rolled pretty damn high on my insight. I rolled like a 21. And he seemed to be completely sincere. That could still mean he's bullshitting out his ass, but that's all I can do. So I was like, I believe you. Okay, so we got up, and we ate some breakfast, and we pretty much headed out. I did some rolls, some intelligence rolls earlier to try and figure out where a basilisk would sleep. And then, so Ren's like, you're in a cave, probably by a hot spring, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, can I roll to, like, figure out where the closest cave system that's likely by a hot spring would be? And so I got a pretty good idea. Couple hour walk from here. And so while we were walking, I did some thinking. I had to be in full-on think mode for this. How do we... Not how do you kill a basilisk. That's an easy task. If that was the only task, they wouldn't even need me. I could have stayed there and be like, yeah, go kill a basilisk, I'll be waiting here. No. How do you collect a basilisk's eye fluid? Tricky. I spent some time thinking about this. I didn't have as much time as I really wanted, and the others were kind of talking while I was trying to think. Like, preferably I like to be in complete silence. I never get it. I never get to have that, but I like it. So I was, I was in think mode, and it was tricky. Answers were not coming to me immediately, and I was looking over my inventory, I was looking over my scion abilities, I was like, what do we do? And I had a number of theories going, but the problem was, like, you only get pretty much one shot at in one theory. And then, boom, you're either dead, or you're fighting this thing, and you're about to die, or you kill it, or, it's... No. And again, I have to be in character. I can't just say, well, let's just rush in and just slaughter it, or whatever. That's not Orion. No, it's got to be more genius than that. If it was Ovum, we'd be like, yeah, you guys stay outside. I'll cut this thing in half, and we'll take its eyes. No. I gotta be Orion about this. I was really thinking hard. The plan that we eventually went with is probably one of the worst plans I've ever come up with for anything in any Dungeons and Dragons session. I'm really embarrassed that the others even went along with it. Like, it's so... I don't even want to tell you guys, because I'm ashamed of it. Part of the shame was a lack of research. This is something I rarely fall victim to. Because, I wanted to know, like, how much basilisks weigh, and we spent, like, 5 minutes looking up basilisk's weight and stuff like that. I was looking up all sorts of stuff. The one thing that I did not look up, because I was so sure of it, was how long it takes for someone to suffocate inside of a bag of holding. Okay, so a bag of holding, you should all be probably familiar with it, but again, if you're not, a bag of holding is a magical pouch. And inside the pouch basically is like a portal to a pocket dimension. So you reach your hand in, and your hand gets basically teleported to a pocket dimension where you can store stuff. And so you can store a lot more in a bag of holding than a pouch of that size. And the pocket dimension does not have any oxygen. It just holds stuff. So you can't store living creatures in it. And so the plan that I had, because Benny mentioned that he had a bag of holding, so I was like, okay. I thought it was a shit plan even at that point, but I was like, it's kind of the best we got, other than just killing it. Like, if I have to be somewhat intelligent, that's as good as I can get. So the plan was to sneak up to the basilisk while it's sleeping, slip the bag of holding over its head, tie a belt around it real tight so it stays on, and it suffocates within a minute. And so Seneth is like a rogue, so it's like, he's real good at stealth. He said he's good at stealth. We can do that. And then I have Cloud Mind, so I can just pick a target and just be like, I don't exist to you anymore, and it suddenly, like, I'm completely invisible and inaudible to it for a minute, so I could just walk over it, and it couldn't do shit. So it's like, okay, I walk in, Cloud Mind, put the bag over its head, Zenith does all his sneaky stuff, gets up to it, ties the belt on, it suffocates. We pop the bag off, pop out its eyes, head back home, do everything, bang some chicks. I don't know. And it was a terrible plan, but it was like, it's a plan, it's somewhat intelligent, we'll go with it. And they were fine with it. And so, sure enough, we get in there, and I do Cloud Mine, it works fine. Zenith basically sneaks up to it. And then I decided to be really cool, because I didn't want to be next to this thing. I didn't want to be like, because literally I would have to like straddle this thing's shoulders to put this bag on. I was like, Orion, no. This is where we use powers. We have powers, we'll use them. I was like, I don't care about revealing my powers to Zenith, you know. This guy's trustworthy. He went into a basilisk's lair with me to put a belt around its head. I think I can trust this guy. So I used just telekinetic grasp to put the bag on its head, and I crit on the roll, so I did it very well. It didn't wake up, and awesome. So then all Zenith had to do was put the belt around, no problem. Sleight of hand, he's proficient in it, he's dexterous, no problem. Yeah, it was a problem. His rolls were shit the whole night, so yeah. And statistically, yeah, no, this is one of those things. I'm not superstitious. Okay, I'm not. I think that every time you roll the dice, you have an equal chance of rolling any of the numbers. But for whatever reason, bad streaks happen. Or that's what it seems like. He rolled maybe one roll was over 10 the entire night. And so, really, as an intelligent player, or I call myself an intelligent player, I should see that these streaks are happening and avoid having that player roll if it's important. It kind of goes along with my my tip to minimize luck at every opportunity in Dungeons & Dragons. You want to roll as little as possible. This plan hinged entirely upon luck. More so in 5th edition because of the way skills work. The D20 roll is so much more important than in 4th edition, where it's just like, yeah, I rolled a 2, but I have a 37 bluff, whatever. Here, it's just like, oh man, yeah, that really pisses me off. It's so dumb. Why do you do this? Think about this. My boy genius character, one of the smartest people in the entire land, he literally gets a +6 to his highest ability, his highest skill roll, a +6. Whereas his athletics, which is, you know, all physical, everything physical possible, he gets a +0, which means he can just as easily roll a 8 as he can crit on an athletics roll. So he can roll an 8 for his history to discover, you know, the history of this kingdom, as he can move a boulder because he crit on his athletics. This just... You're such a slave to the D20. Like, if you really jack up your skills, and again, this is why Fred worked as a character, is because everything had to be bluffed. There wasn't a situation, like, every situation I went into that involved basically, you know, talking, or that involved other intelligent creatures, it was like, how do I bluff my way out of here? Everything needs to involve bluff in some way, because that's what he's good at. Here it's just like, well, you can pretty much do anything, kind of. I mean, yeah, you might get a little bonus to something or other, but you know, pretty much every character's kind of similar. And it's just like, you can't mitigate bad rolls. Fred could mitigate a bad roll because his bluff was insane. Here it's just like, yeah, okay, I'm really good at history, but I rolled shitty to know the history of this temple, so, oh well. The noble woman over there, she rolled well, so she knows everything. It's not realistic at all. And I know this is pretty much how it's been for most of D&D, but since I grew up on 4th edition, that's what just makes sense to me. Like, you're really good at something, you're shit at everything else, I mean, that's not realistic, but you're shit at things and you're good at other things. Here it's just kind of like, well, I have a +2 to acrobatics. Why? Why? Orion should have nothing bonus to acrobatics. And yeah, I mean, you'd get small bonuses in 4th edition, but it's just kind of a pet peeve because I like making unbalanced characters, I guess. If you like making balanced characters, then 5th edition's great. Everything's balanced. Where the hell was I? Oh, yeah, so, okay, he kind of messed up his roll, so he got smacked by the basilisk tail for like 10 damage, and it was awake. It had the belt and the bag around it, and that's when Ren dropped the bomb. He's like, let me see. Oh yeah, it's 10 minutes. I'm like, what? What? So yeah, it's 10 minutes to suffocate inside of a bag of holding. Because apparently a bag of holding, the pocket dimension, contains enough air for a creature to survive 10 minutes. I mean, yeah, I know why they did this, so you can throw something in there and it won't just immediately die, but it bugs me. It bugs me because I didn't research. That's why it bugs me. Any other situation would be like, okay, well, bag of holding 10 minutes, okay. But I was so certain. I was like, there's no oxygen in there. It'll suffocate as if it were underwater or something, But I didn't research, and we paid the price. If I would have known, I would have never gone with that plan, because that would have made it the worst plan ever. It's terrible. It's not a plan at all. So anyways, the thing started bucking around, and I was looking over my sheet. I was like, we're going to get into combat with this thing. What can I do? What can I do? I'm not meant for this. Mind Thrust can only work on creatures with an intelligence greater than 4. Which is a lot of creatures, but not a basilisk. Its intelligence is 2. So I can't Mind Thrust it, which is my base. That's my like at will damaging attack. It does good damage. It's 1 power point. It's just Mind Thrust, Mind Thrust, Mind Thrust, Mind Thrust, So then I have Telekinetic Grasp, which is not my preferred way of damaging, because it pretty much costs more. And it doesn't do as much damage. And so, if you remember, Telekinetic Grasp, 1 power point, 30 pounds or less. And then you can do 1 power point as an augment, as many times as you want, to do an additional 10 pounds. So to lift a 100-pound creature, you need the 30-pound base, plus 7 more power points for the 100 pounds, so that's 8 power points just to lift a 100-pound object or creature. Basilisk weighs 300 pounds, which means that I would need 28 power points total to just grasp it. And it would get a strength save. So it might not even be grasped. So 28 power points. I had already spent 3 on the Cloud Mine. And 1 on the bag. So I'm down to 17 total. So I would need to use Overchannel. If you remember me describing this, it's where I get to roll a number of d6. I gain that number of temporary power points for an ability, but I also take that much psychic damage. I have 18 health, so the most that I would reasonably risk is 3 dice. Because then, worst case scenario, I get knocked out, but that would be very uncommon to roll 3 6s. So 3 dice, the average would be like, 10 power points? So then that would be that would bump me up to 27, so that still wouldn't be enough, so I'd either need a lucky roll or I'd have to risk more. I'd basically have to risk killing myself just to lift this thing into the air, and then I could do maybe like 1d4 damage. That's if it doesn't roll its strength save, which is its highest attribute. So I'm just like, I'm worthless, I can't do anything! So Roella runs in, and Seneth says, kill the thing! So she fires off a chromatic orb, and she crit fails. So she hits it right in the face, where the bag is. And it slumps over. So I tell Seneth to secure the belt, because I was like, don't take it off yet. You know, because that's when it gores you, you know? Or it stares you right in the eye and you're dead. Just secure the belt, we'll wait the 10 minutes, it'll die. I don't know what happened to it, she stunned it, I don't know. He goes to check the belt, and he kind of just pulls the bag off. And there's no head. And the bag is broken. Yeah. So when a bag of holding is ruptured or punctured or damaged in any significant way, it breaks. And anything inside of it at the time is lost. It just floats out into, you know, extra-dimensional space. Impossible to get it back, because you can't reach into the Baka dimension anymore. The bag's broken. So if there's a head inside of it, it just gets severed through magic, I guess, and it's lost. And so, yeah, we decapitated the basilisk and unable to retrieve its head because of a broken bag of holding. So my bag plan kind of screwed us, not through really my own planning, but also through my own planning, but then it was a shitty plan anyways, and it was just... We got XP for it. We did get XP for killing a basilisk, which is pretty cool. Nice 220 XP or something like that. But yeah, we need another basilisk. And so that's where we ended. Because I was like, I'm going to need a week to think about this. So yeah. Now I have to ponder this for a while. Because I need to come back next Monday with a solid plan. A theory that I am confident will work with proper research. And so, there's all sorts of things. I mean, it's not a problem of coming up with a plan. Anybody can come up with a plan. It's coming up with a good plan is the difficult part. So there are, I mean, we could set pitfalls, we could set traps, snares, we could do things like that, wait for it to come out of the cave, and, you know, trap it in some way that it either knocks itself out, dies of some sort of hunger, starvation, suffocation, whatever, or it can't look at us and we kill it some other way, something like that. I mean, the pitfall trap is a solid plan, but it's kind of mundane, so that's why I didn't go with it. If that's what it comes down to is the best plan that I think, I will go with it, because it'll probably work. But here's the best that I've got right now. I thought about it a little bit, and I read over the basilisk monster page. So basilisks, I assume everybody knows what they are. I've said it this whole time, but if you don't know what a basilisk is, for whatever reason, it's a large reptile, about 6 feet long-ish, plus a long tail, weighs about 300 pounds, and in legend, and in D&D, its gaze, by looking at you, if you return its gaze, it can turn you to stone. Kind of like Medusa. And so, how a basilisk turns its prey to stone, and then it eats the stone. That's how it feeds. But what was interesting, I knew that. But what was interesting to me, reading the page in the monster manual, was a creature consumed as stone turns back to living flesh in its stomach. Huh. That got me thinking then. What if we set a trap that way? what if we let it eat something, and then it turns back alive in its stomach, and then something happens? So I'm thinking we get like a chicken or a turkey, whatever, some small animal, and we like load that thing up with poison. Like, we make it just like a chemical ticking time bomb, basically. Just, I don't know how long it'll survive in that state, so we might have to just inject it or whatever, feed it some shit right before we feed it to the basilisk. I don't know. But we just load it up, then we throw it in front of the basilisk, and I have telekinesis. I can literally throw it right in front of the basilisk. It turns it to stone, eats it, turns it back into living flesh inside its stomach. It like starts to dissolve, the poisons come out of its system, and it just kills that basilisk from the inside, dies, or slumps over dead. That's the best plan I got right now. Now, obviously, Ren is watching this right now. He can think of many ways to screw up this plan. Most notably that I can think of is that by turning the chicken or whatever to stone, it nullifies the poison. That is the strongest possibility, and especially since I just told him that now. So basically, we just sit there, watch the basilisk eat, and then it just kind of like sits there, and nothing ever happens. I can't think of any way around that. I assume explosives are off the menu. I mean, some DMs let me come up with explosives. But even if I was going to go that route, this would not be the situation or the scenario to do it. I'm not just going to come up with explosives in the middle of a forest. I would need like a lab, and I would need an airship, and yeah. So poisons would have to be the route. So if that doesn't work, I'm not sure what else I could rig to turn back into living flesh inside of it. No, nothing I could build in the forest. Maybe like a porcupine, like a manufactured porcupine, where like, because it only turns living flesh to stone. Well, it might break it when it eats it, but like a device on a creature, and then when it's in its stomach, you activate now. But it's not like wireless, so that doesn't work. You'd have to time it. I mean, there's clockwork, but then it'd be likely to break. But if it did go through, if it was clockwork, it was timed, and then it activated, and a bunch of shit came, like a bunch of spikes came out of it, or something like that. There are ways, but again, that's not a good plan because I can't rely on it. I'm going to still probably go with the poison idea just because it seems really funny to me. I just want to load up a chicken with poisons and feed it to a thing against its will because I'm horrible. So I'll probably go with that. The pitfall trap will probably be plan B unless I come up with something else over the week. I think either of those plans don't really mess with the eyes. See, the most common way of fighting a basilisk is you use a mirror. You bring along a mirror and you show it to the basilisk, and basically it returns its gaze upon itself and turns to stone, which is fine, except we need the eyes. And we don't want them to be stone, we need the fluid. And so Seneth, I think, brought up the point of, is there a way to turn stone back to flesh? Yes. And I'll get to that in a second. But the most basic way, there's a wizard spell where you can turn stone to flesh. There's the Greater Restoration spell from clerics that can heal it. But the other thing, from the Monster Manual pages, there's something in their gullet, or something, which makes sense. Or, there's something in their stomach, something like that turns stone to flesh, which is how it works in their stomach. So that's why when they eat something, it turns back to flesh. So we have a dead basilisk. If we could harvest that chemical from the dead one's stomach, and then we use the mirror idea on another basilisk, we like snap off its head, we turn this head back to flesh, pluck out its eyes. That might work. It's not guaranteed though, because that breaking off its head might fuck with something. We could do something with the stone body and then turn it back to. I might have to think about that. That could be a potential plan B. I might leave that as a plan B. Yeah. So you guys can comment if you have any ideas or suggestions that I don't think of. I'm sure you can think of plenty of stuff. Which is why D&D is just fantastic. Think about this one simple puzzle offered to us. Get a basilisk's eye fluid. And just think about how many different ways you can accomplish it's a puzzle. You know, you're never gonna find something like that in a board game. It's fantastic. It's like, you know, get some hair off of a giant's ass, and you're just like, how do I do that? What? Somebody has that quest somewhere to get the hair off a giant's ass. Alright, but I think that's about it for this one. Not the craziest session until the end where things heated up a little bit. But there's a lot of plot elements going on one end, and then there's the kind of just crazy puzzle things going on the other end. And I'm liking it all. So, yeah. Alright. So, my name is Mang. This has been Roll Manging for D&D 5th edition. And I'll see you fine folks next week.